give the illusion of a fold, and when we add our shading, I will shade those in, and that will give even more of an illusion of a fold. So I want to do fescue by headquarters for her hair. So I'm going to bring a wavy line down with an orb at the bottom that I fill in, and that's fescue. Very easy to do as well. So you can do something different with her hair. Gee whiz, I hope you do some different things and show me some great ideas. I'm going to use a 4.5 by 4.5 paper today. It's just a regular, little bit of a heavy-duty cardstock, and I'm going to put a dot right here in the middle so that, to mark. And I am lucky to have this circle maker. If you don't have a circle maker, go ahead and grab any circles that you want. I'm going to do the girl's face at about 1 inch. And then I'm going to go to 1.5 inch. And of course, these are approximate. If you have some different sizes that are close enough for you, you go for it. I am putting this on in ink. And there. So I've got my whole string all set and ready to go. Right away, let's work in, although if you want to do her face in pencil first, that's not a bad idea. It's especially hard to do her nose, and from then on, it's not hard at all. I'm gonna make a inward C and another inward C, and then I'm gonna make 2 little inward marks like that. The next thing I'm gonna do is right off of that C that I made, I'm gonna make a big C. Let's do another one off the other side. Now, as you know, things are not perfect in nature or any other thing, so please don't worry if you don't think this is perfect. Don't get frustrated. There are no mistakes in Zentangle. You see that I have created her eyes by going off the center just a little bit. And now I'm going to put her eyes in here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of white, or what is on the paper, a little bit of cream color. And that's called sparkle. It's kind of it's a good thing to leave. Now I want her looking that way, but you can decide how you want your girly to look and what direction you want her to look. And I'd love to see what you bring home or bring to the plate here today. So there she is. Let's put some eyelashes on her, and that'll go a little higher, and maybe you'll have a little angle on that. And when we do this, let's put a few eyelashes on each side. And maybe we'll do that on her eyes as well. Just lightly flick some on, little whiskers shapes. And then her mouth. So I'm gonna make her mouth like a real lazy S. Kind of watch what I'm doing. I'm gonna go up and down. Do that again, up and down, and then connect, because our girly is very happy. And there she is. Now I do need to use my eraser because she has a dot on the middle of her nose, because I needed to mark the center place, but she does not need a dot. Okay, so we're ready to get started with the rest of what's around our girly. And I would like to just take a minute before I do, though, and put some very light flicks for the apple of her cheeks. And maybe I'll have a little bit of light flick there for her chin. And this is where I'm going to use that fescue pattern that I showed you. I'm going to flick some lighter and some darker, and you can see that I'm putting some angles on, just to give the illusion of her having some hair. She'd be just as pretty without it, you know. She doesn't have to have that. but I'd say definitely her hair's pretty curly. There she is. She's so pretty. What I want to do is put some rice grains, and I'm going to do one straight off the top. So it's a half a C and then a half a C, and I'm going to do that on the bottom. And I'm going to turn my girly and do the two sides. And then intermediates. And then in between, so that we have rice grains all the way around, framing her lovely face. So feel free to pause me at any time if I'm moving too fast, or speed it up if I'm moving too slow. Whatever you would like. Now, and down. There. A couple more steps to complete this lovely girl. And what I'm going to do next is that henna drum that I showed you. So I'm going to make a half circle. Then I'm going to make a second half circle. I'm going to go back and darken that in. Feel free to grab a heavier pen if you want. Maybe a 05 would be better for you, or a Sharpie. henna drum, remember, is a stick and a stick in the middle, a stick and a stick on the side, a stick and a stick on the angle that way, and then watch, I'm from this point to that point, from this point to this, and there, and there. The last thing we'll do is put whiskers in each of these to give it that illusion of a fold. We'll be doing this all the way around, double ring, darken, stick and a stick, two again, two there, but I'm going to grab my blender stump or my soft pencil now. I'm going to show you where I would suggest you put some shading, which is for the first place I would put it along here around her face, right at the edge. Don't bother to go over the black. It'll just make it shiny and it really won't show up at all. So that's a good thing to leave off. Don't bother with the pencil lead there. I'm also going to use a little pencil lead around these rice grains. And you can see I'm just putting it on pretty quickly. And I like to put all of my shading on first, all of my graphite, and then I'll come back and I'll go ahead and blend it all in at one time. right, and then I'd like to go around the outside here of these lovely patterns. Add the graphite. Again, I don't bother to go over the black. It won't show up anyway. You just make it shiny. There are a lot of choices of shading and shading books that you can look at.